officer.
It
You
what?
are exceeding your lawful authority.
Officer-
He asked if he was being detained. You are required to answer.
Ma'am, you're interfering. Step back now.
Interference requires physical obstruction. I'm 10 feet away on a public sidewalk, and your own policy says...
You don't tell me my job.
No, I'm reminding you of the law.
The whole city didn't know her name yet. But that changed the morning. A young black woman in a plain gray hoodie stood on the side of a busy street and calmly told a police officer that he was breaking the very law he claimed to protect. People walking by slowed down. Drivers rolled down their windows. Someone pulled out a phone. And within minutes, the video of her voice, steady, clear, and sharp as a judge's gavel, started spreading so fast that even the officer realized something was happening that he could not control. It was the moment everyone would soon talk about, the day a law student taught a police officer the law in front of the whole world, and still ended up getting him suspended. Before I continue, where are you watching from? And please, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Her name was Lena. She was 24, in her second year of law school, and known for one thing on campus. She didn't run from confrontation if it involved justice. She didn't look intimidating. She didn't shout. She didn't wave papers. She simply knew the rules better than most people twice her age, and when she explained something, she spoke as if she were reading it straight out of a book written inside her mind. That morning, she was walking to a study group after grabbing breakfast from a small street cafe. She carried only two things: a stack of notes in her backpack and a bottle of water. Nothing about her looked unusual. Nothing suggested that within an hour her face would appear on nearly every social media platform in the country. What triggered everything was a simple traffic stop. A white police officer, a man named Officer Grant, had pulled over a young delivery driver. No flashing lights, no crowd, just a normal stop near the sidewalk. But something felt off. Grant wasn't just checking documents. He was raising his voice. The driver looked nervous, and at one point, Grant reached for the car door handle, trying to pull it open without permission. Lena saw it while waiting at the crosswalk. She paused. She listened. And then she noticed what made her stop walking altogether. The driver had asked, very quietly, "Am I being detained?" And the officer ignored it. Lena knew the law. She knew that question mattered. And she knew the silence after it mattered even more. She walked closer, slowly, respectfully. Not aggressive, not reckless, just close enough to hear every word. Grant didn't like that. He turned his head toward her and told her to keep moving. His tone wasn't friendly. It wasn't neutral. It was the kind that assumed authority should never be questioned. But Lena didn't move. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't step too close. She simply said, "Sir, he asked you a legal question. He has the right to have it answered." That was the sentence that made three people around her stop walking. Someone across the street lifted their phone and started recording. The driver looked confused but relieved someone else was paying attention. Grant's eyebrows pulled together as if he'd been personally challenged. It was the first time in his career that someone so young, so calm, and so certain refused to back down. He told her again to leave. She didn't. Instead, she listed, plainly and politely, the exact laws he was violating by ignoring the driver's question and attempting to open the car door without cause. She spoke as if she were reading a textbook, but every word came from memory. Every explanation was simple enough for a child to understand. People started whispering. Someone muttered, "She's right." Someone else whispered, "She sounds like a lawyer." The video camera zoomed in. Grant became visibly irritated. He wasn't used to someone knowing more than him. He wasn't used to being corrected. And he definitely wasn't used to being corrected by a young black woman who didn't flinch when he stepped toward her as if to intimidate her. But she didn't move an inch. Her feet were planted. Her breathing was steady. Her face was relaxed, not smug, not angry, just firm and focused. Then she said the sentence that would replay in millions of views later. You can enforce the law, but you can't break it. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but the street fell silent. Grant's face changed. Not suddenly, but slowly, like he realized he'd lost control of the moment. The delivery driver looked up with a tiny spark of hope. And then, in the most predictable move possible, Grant reached for his radio and threatened to call in backup for interference. That was the mistake, because Lena knew the word interference better than any officer on that block. She calmly explained what interference legally meant, how it was defined, and why her standing on a public sidewalk 10 feet away did not qualify. Her voice never cracked. Her hands never shook. She looked like someone presenting a case in a courtroom, even though she was just standing on concrete with cars rushing past. The recording kept going. Grant's breathing grew heavier. He tried to regain control. He tried to make her feel small. But nothing worked. With every sentence she spoke, more people gathered. And the driver inside the car, once terrified, was now watching her like she was the only person keeping the situation fair. Then came the moment that changed everything. Grant stepped too close. He leaned in, invading her space. The crowd reacted. People gasped. And Lena responded, not with fear, not with anger, but with a single line delivered so clearly that every person watching the video would remember it. Please step back. You're exceeding your lawful authority. The entire crowd felt it. That was the moment the officer realized she was not just a random passerby. She was someone who knew exactly what she was talking about. Grant froze. And then he took a step back. No shouting. No chaos. Just controlled silence. The video captured it all. Within minutes, someone pressed upload. Within an hour, the clip had spread across group chats, community pages, and neighborhood forums. By the next morning, the entire city had seen it. And in 48 hours, the police department would release a statement that would shock everyone, including Lena herself. The video didn't just spread, it exploded. By noon the next day, it was being shared in classrooms, offices, buses, and family group chats. People replayed the moment Officer Grant stepped back as if they needed to confirm it really happened. Others focused on the calm, steady voice of Lena breaking down the law so clearly that even kids could understand it. What caught everyone by surprise wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. No fear. No confusion. No hesitation. Just facts. But the biggest shock came when the police department posted a short, tight statement on their official page. It read, "We are aware of an incident involving Officer Grant. An internal review has been opened." Nothing more. No details. No clarification. Just enough to let the public know something serious was happening behind closed doors. People started asking questions. Who was the young woman? Was she a lawyer? Why did the police respond so quickly? And what exactly did the officer do wrong? Lena didn't know the answers to most of those questions herself. She had no idea the video had gone viral yet. She had spent the previous night studying for an exam, unaware that millions of people were watching her stand on that sidewalk, correcting a police officer with the confidence of someone 10 years older. Her phone started buzzing nonstop before she even woke up. At first, she thought it was just her friends reminding her about a group project. But when she opened the first message, her eyes widened. It was a clip sent by her classmate with a caption, "Is this you?" There she was. Plain gray hoodie, backpack, calm voice, and a police officer stepping backward as if pushed by invisible force. She felt her stomach flip. More messages rolled in. Some were amazed. Some were shocked. Some were cheering. But they all said the same thing. You're everywhere. Lena didn't know whether to feel proud or nervous. She had never wanted attention. She wasn't trying to become famous. She wasn't even trying to embarrass the officer. She simply couldn't walk past something wrong without speaking up. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the video as it replayed over and over. She heard her own voice, steady and confident, and it almost felt like she was listening to someone else. But what surprised her most was how people reacted. In the comments, strangers were calling her the calm hero. Others were saying she should run for office someday. Some, especially parents, were thanking her for showing their kids what standing up respectfully looked like. And everywhere she looked, people were breaking down her statements word by word as if she had delivered a national speech. But not all reactions were positive. Mixed among the supportive messages were angry ones, short, sharp comments accusing her of overstepping, trying to be smart, or disrespecting authority. Lena scrolled past them quickly. She didn't have time to fight online. She had real classes to attend. But the world was already talking, and the noise was only getting louder. Across town, inside the police department, things were not calm at all. The video had put them under a spotlight bigger than anything they expected. Complaints were pouring in. Phone lines were busy. Reporters were sending emails asking for interviews, and officers were whispering in the hallways like something historic had just happened. Grant was called into a private office early that morning. When he stepped inside, he found two supervisors waiting for him. They looked tired, they looked frustrated, and they looked like they had watched the video more times than they wanted to admit. One of them asked him to explain his actions. Grant tried. He talked about procedure. He talked about control. But every sentence he offered collapsed under the simple fact recorded on video. Lena had been right. The driver had asked if he was being detained. Grant ignored it. Then he tried to open the door without answering. And when confronted, he escalated instead of stepping back. The department's leadership knew the public wouldn't ignore any of this. Not when the clip had already reached national pages. While that meeting was happening, Lena's university was having its own discussion. She received an email asking her to stop by the dean's office. Her heart jumped. She hoped she wasn't in trouble. She didn't want her involvement to affect her academic life. She walked into the dean's office with her backpack still on, expecting a serious lecture. Instead, the dean asked her to sit down and gave her a calm smile. "I saw the video," he said. "You handled yourself well." Lena didn't know what to say. She didn't expect praise. She didn't expect anything. The dean continued, "Just know that things may get noisy for a while. Reporters might reach out. People may want interviews. You don't have to speak to anyone unless you want to." She nodded quietly. "And one more thing," the dean added. "You did nothing wrong." For the first time since she saw the video, Lena felt her shoulders relax. But the day was far from over. The real shock came later that afternoon. She was walking across campus when her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a friend or a classmate. It was a message from an unknown number. The preview read, "This is regarding Officer Grant. Please read." Her heart skipped. She opened the message slowly. It was a short statement from the police department. They informed her that the officer involved had been placed on temporary suspension while they continued a full review of the incident. Lena stopped walking. Suspended? She didn't expect that. She didn't ask for that. She wasn't even trying to get the officer punished. She just wanted the situation to be fair. Students walked past her, laughing and talking, unaware she was standing still in the middle of the walkway with her phone in her hand and her thoughts spinning. But the suspension wasn't the end. Within hours, more information leaked online. Details about the officer's past complaints, his disciplinary record, his behavior during previous stops. People connected the dots, and the more they learned, the more the public demanded answers. The story was no longer just about a law student correcting a police officer. It was about accountability. It was about respect. It was about the balance between authority and the people it serves. And by the time night came, Lena realized something she hadn't considered before. This wasn't just a viral moment. This was the beginning of something much bigger. The suspension changed everything. Before, The video was just a viral moment, something people watched, shared, and debated. But once the department confirmed that Officer Grant had been removed from duty, the story became national news. Large accounts reposted it with captions like, "Law student stands her ground," and "Calmest lesson in the law you will ever see." Even major journalists began requesting interviews with Lena. She didn't answer any of them. Not because she was scared, but because she didn't want the attention. She didn't want to become a topic. She didn't want her face to be attached to a controversy that could grow bigger than she intended. All she wanted was to live her life, pass her exams, and become a lawyer someday. But once a story leaves your hands, you can't pull it back. Across the country, people were talking about her, some praising her, some criticizing her, and some arguing endlessly in comment sections. And every time her name came up, someone repeated the same fact. She was only a second-year law student. That shocked people more than anything else. Meanwhile, the department's internal investigation grew deeper. What began as a routine review slowly uncovered a long list of problems connected to Grant's previous stops. Complaints that had been filed but never fully processed. Body camera issues. Reports that didn't match witness statements. None of these things were new. They were simply unnoticed until the video forced everyone to look. Inside the department, the atmosphere shifted. Officers whispered in the break room. Supervisors argued in closed offices. The chief attended meetings he hadn't planned. And every conversation circled around the same question. How did a student catch something we didn't? Grant felt the pressure the hardest. His neighbors stopped speaking to him. Strangers online sent angry messages. Even his own colleagues avoided eye contact. What bothered him the most was simple. He had been in control of the situation that day. He believed he handled it correctly. But the moment Lena spoke, he lost control, and he never gained it back. And now his career was slipping through his fingers. While all this noise surrounded her, Lena kept her routine simple. She went to class. She typed notes. She ate lunch alone sometimes. She walked home with her headphones in. But everywhere she went, somebody recognized her. One afternoon, while she was reviewing case briefs in the library, a first-year student approached her. "I'm sorry to bother you," he whispered, "but you're the girl from the video, right?" Lena nodded politely. He smiled nervously. "You're the reason I want to study constitutional law now. I just thought you should know." She thanked him quietly, but inside she felt a mix of pride and pressure. She didn't want people treating her as if she were a symbol. She didn't want to represent a movement she never asked for. But sometimes, the world chooses the face of a moment, even when the person didn't volunteer. The next major shift came from an unexpected source, the city council. Public pressure had grown so strong that council members demanded a full review of traffic stop procedures. The video sparked debates in town halls, community centers, and classrooms. People began asking questions they had never asked before. Why could a young student explain the law more clearly than a trained officer? How common were stops like this? And why did it take a viral video to force accountability? These weren't small questions. They pushed the city into a spotlight it hadn't experienced in years. And the more the council members looked into it, the more they realized the public wanted long-term changes, not just a temporary suspension. Meanwhile, Lena finally told her mother about the video. She expected her to panic. She expected her to worry. But instead, her mother sat on the couch, watched the clip quietly, and then looked at her with steady eyes. "You didn't embarrass yourself," she said. "You didn't embarrass anyone. You stood in truth. That's something you never have to apologize for." Those words carried Lena through the next few days. But things changed again the moment a large civil rights organization reached out. They sent an email saying they wanted to meet with her, not for a public event, not for a speech, but privately. They believed her voice could help push forward clearer rules for police behavior during traffic stops. Lena wasn't sure. She didn't see herself as a leader. She didn't feel ready to be a spokesperson. She was just a student who happened to be at the right place at the right time. But the meeting wasn't about speeches. It wasn't about interviews. They simply wanted her to explain what she saw, what she knew, and why she spoke up. They believed her perspective could guide change. After thinking about it for 2 days, she agreed. The meeting took place in a small conference room downtown. 4 representatives sat across from her. Calm, respectful, attentive. They asked her to walk them through every detail. What she heard, what she saw, what she understood about the law, and why she chose to intervene. As she explained the events, something unexpected happened. They didn't interrupt. They didn't challenge. They didn't question her memory. They listened, fully, carefully, and with respect. When she finished, one representative told her, "You may not realize it, but the clarity you used that day can help us create better protections for citizens." Lena felt something inside her shift. It wasn't pride. It wasn't excitement. It was responsibility. The kind she didn't ask for but couldn't ignore. After the meeting, she sat outside on the steps of the building, watching cars pass and people walk by. For the first time, she understood the larger picture. The moment on the sidewalk wasn't just about one officer. It was about every person who felt powerless during a traffic stop. About every driver who didn't know their rights. About every situation where silence allowed mistakes to continue. And whether she wanted to or not, she was now part of that conversation. But the biggest shock of all happened 3 days later. A major national news station aired a detailed report exposing Officer Grant's past record. The story wasn't just about the viral video. It included internal documents, previous complaints, and years of issues that had been overlooked. Viewers were stunned. Community leaders demanded action. And the city council announced they were considering a permanent decision regarding Grant's future in the department. That night, as Lena sat at her desk highlighting her textbooks, she received a new message, one that made her hands pause in midair. It was from the police department's internal affairs office. They wanted to speak with her. Not as a witness in a simple review, but as the key civilian voice in a case that could determine whether the suspension became permanent. And for the first time since the video went viral, Lena realized something very real. The officer's entire career was now in her hands. The message from Internal Affairs sat on Lena's screen for a long time before she moved. It wasn't fear holding her still. It was the weight of what the message represented. She never wanted control over anyone's future. She only wanted fairness on the day she spoke up. But now the department wanted her statement, and whatever she said could decide whether Officer Grant returned to duty or not. She finally replied, agreeing to meet. The meeting was scheduled for the following morning at a neutral location, a small conference room inside a city building, quiet and plain, with nothing on the walls except a clock ticking softly above the door. When she walked inside, 2 investigators stood to greet her. No uniforms. No harsh expressions, just calm professionalism. They asked her to take a seat, turned on a recorder, and began. Their questions weren't dramatic. They didn't try to push her. They only wanted clarity, what she saw, why she stepped in, what she understood about the law, and whether she believed the officer acted outside of his authority. Lena spoke the same way she did on the sidewalk, steady, clear, and simple. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't attack him. She didn't add unnecessary details. She told the truth exactly as it happened. When the investigators finished, one of them said quietly, "Your explanation matches everything we found." They thanked her for her time and ended the recording. And that was it. No suspense. No dramatic exit. She walked outside to the open air feeling strangely empty, as though she had just stepped out of a long exam she didn't study for but somehow passed. But the story wasn't done with her. By the afternoon, the city felt tense. News reports spoke about the investigation constantly. Commentators argued over whether the officer should return to duty. Community members organized discussions in local centers. Some people said the officer needed a second chance. Others said his record showed a long pattern that couldn't be ignored. The city was split. Then a new development hit. A longer version of the viral video surfaced, footage recorded by a different angle. It showed Grant stepping even closer to the car than originally seen, putting his hand inside the window before the driver gave permission. The extended clip made things worse for him and clearer for everyone else. It showed exactly why Lena stepped in. The conversation shifted again. Now even more people argued that Lena didn't intervene to argue with authority. She intervened to stop a situation from escalating. She saw a rule being broken, and she responded to that and nothing else. More recordings emerged, witnesses who captured sound from different distances. Everything matched Lena's account. It was impossible to twist or dispute. That evening, the department announced they would hold a press briefing the next day. The entire city waited. The next morning, reporters gathered outside the building. Cameras, microphones, notebooks, the energy felt heavy. People weren't just waiting out of curiosity anymore. They wanted closure. Lena didn't attend. She watched from her small living room, sitting cross-legged on her couch with her laptop open in front of her. Her mother sat beside her silently. At exactly 10 a.m., the police chief stepped up to a podium. He looked tired. He looked serious. But most of all, he looked ready to speak truthfully. He started by acknowledging the viral video, then the extended footage, then the internal investigation. He explained the department's duty to uphold the law and the high standards officers must follow. Then he took a breath, adjusted the papers in front of him, and delivered the statement that would replay in the news for weeks. After a thorough review, the department has decided to uphold the suspension of Officer Grant. Effective immediately, Officer Grant will be removed from active duty pending final separation from the force. The room went silent before reporters burst into overlapping questions. The chief raised his hand for quiet and continued. We want to be clear. This decision is not based on public pressure. It is based on documented facts, consistent evidence, and violations of procedure. We also acknowledge the individual whose calm actions that day prevented the situation from escalating. We thank her for her clarity and courage. For a moment, Lena forgot to breathe. Her name wasn't mentioned, but she didn't need it to be. She knew the sentence was for her. Her mother placed a hand gently on her shoulder. It's over, her mother said quietly. But she was wrong. It wasn't over. Because the very next day, Lena received another message, this time from her university. They wanted her to speak at a student forum about knowing your rights. They made it optional, not pressure, but they believed her perspective could help others. Then another message arrived, from a local community group inviting her to a workshop. Then another, from a young woman, who said the video gave her confidence to speak up in her own situation. Then another, from a man who said he showed the clip to his son. The pattern became clear. People didn't only want to talk about the viral moment. They wanted to learn from it. They wanted to understand the law the way Lena explained it, simple, calm, and clear. They wanted to know how to behave during traffic stops, how to stay respectful, and how to respond when something didn't feel right. They wanted the confidence she had shown on the sidewalk that day. And that's when Lena understood something she hadn't seen before. What she did wasn't just a moment. It was a model. Not of argument. Not of anger. Not of fighting authority. But of knowledge. People weren't drawn to her because she confronted an officer. They were drawn to her because she understood the rules better than the person enforcing them. And she spoke those rules with a calm voice that made everyone feel capable of doing the same. As days passed, she continued receiving invitations, messages, questions, and even thanks from strangers. She turned down most public events. She still didn't want to be a public figure. But she agreed to help her university create a short, simple guide on citizens' rights during traffic stops. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was just clear information, straightforward, easy and helpful. The guide spread quickly across campus. Then it reached other schools. Then community pages. Soon, people across the city were sharing it the same way they had shared the original video. And slowly, without meaning to, Lena became something she never expected. A quiet force for education. Not a celebrity. Not a leader. Not a symbol. Just a young woman who understood that knowledge can calm chaos, prevent conflict, and guide people towards safer, better outcomes. One evening, weeks after everything started, she walked past the same street where the incident happened. Cars passed normally. People walked by. Nothing looked special. Nothing looked different. But she paused anyway. She looked at the spot where she once stood. She thought of the driver. She thought of the officer. She thought of the city that changed because people finally paid attention. Then she took a slow breath and continued walking, not because she was running from the past, but because she was stepping into a future she was finally ready to face. A future she never asked for, but one she now fully understood she could handle.